We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast on this beautiful Friday morning going into a 3-day weekend. I hope everybody is doing well. I am your host, Stephen Willis, and I am happy to be here. I'm genuinely happy to spread the good news to you. Today on the show, we're going to talk a little bit about football and outside perception moving into the season. So this is outside narratives moving into the season. So we have that to look forward to, and a little sneak peek of the South Carolina preview with Chris Clark. We have that coming up in the second segment. Just full disclosure, we are pre-recording this, which is superfluous, but we're recording this early to make sure we can make it to Tampa early this afternoon. We're going over there to MacDill Air Force Base this morning, and we have some stuff we want to be able to get back in time for the reaction show after the baseball game, and it's a whole thing. The easiest way to do that is to pre-record this show. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about the Vault Society. That's the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation's big push right now is the Vault Society. It's a 5-year commitment of support, and there's $5,000 a year minimum. If you have any questions about it, there's a benefit chart on the site. We're going to get to that in just a second. All gifts to Ole Miss between now and June 30th will receive triple points. Red points are non-deductible and go towards priority seating. Blue points are 90% tax deductible and go towards parking and non-home ticketed games. There's a series that go over at Hoover right now, playing an example of that, and we got a pretty big example of that on Labor Day coming up. So if you have any questions about it, go to givetoathletics.com. Again, that is givetoathletics.com. If you want to follow the show, you can on Twitter at The Stephen Willis or at The Rebel Walk. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast or The Rebel Walk. We're on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. It'll be beneficial no matter which element you watch. It'll be a nice notification to have. And we're on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. If podcatchers are more of your thing, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. We're also on smaller podcatchers, but if we were to name them, we would be here all day. So it's only a 30-minute show. So thank you very much for joining us today. So we're sitting here getting ready to start the pre-football season push. We're ending up on baseball, and by the way, Ole Miss will play Vanderbilt today. Vanderbilt lost to Arkansas 6-4 last night. Cops pitched 3 innings, by the way, so that who knows if he's going to continually be overused. But he does have a day off because they go in the winner's bracket, so he could pitch on Saturday if Ole Miss won the game today. So that's something to keep an eye on. We're going to talk about that a little bit, or we did talk about it a bit with Chris and his preview of the Vanderbilt game, and so we're going to get into that and hope you enjoyed that. So I don't even know what was said, so that's fancy. We haven't even recorded that yet. But we will eventually, and we'll find out batting order, pitchers, all that. We're expecting Jack Leiter from Vanderbilt today. So we get another shot at him after he pitched just a gem in Oxford a couple weeks back. But as it stands with football season, outside narratives control. That's the reason you see top 10 lists that don't even have Matt Corral in it, even though he's number one in QBR. And there's some of he'll be in it. And like the Athons list has him at 10th. And I think a lot of that boils down to what is on the side of the helmet. Let's just be real about that. There's a narrative that needs to be changed. Clemsoning used to be a thing. Understand that. Whenever you deal with narratives, you got people that do the "we are Ole Miss" narrative. That's the thing now. The only way out is through. You got to go. You got to pretend like it's not even there. You got to make the plays that matter. Ole Miss starts winning 10 games consistently. You'll see that "we are Ole Miss" disappear. And you will see Matt Corral, instead of being a preseason number 10, go up to preseason number 4. He'd get the benefit of the doubt that Spencer Rattler is getting. He spent 4 games last year really struggling. Yeah, he really did. Against Texas, he led a comeback, which may or may not have been difficult against that Texas team. I don't know. But that allowed him to turn it around, and it could be anything. It could be the schedule got lighter. It could be the light came on for him. We don't know. We need to see a normal season to see where he is, and that is this year. But he gets the benefit of the doubt and the number one on every list because of Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts. Period. It's the only answer. Now, I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm just saying he's not clearly better than Matt Corral. Whenever everybody saw Matt Corral, he had two bad games. Spencer Rattler had 4. So it's worth keeping in mind. It's worth looking at because either they matter or they don't. It's a narrative thing. Because they have pretty close to the same resume at this point. Excuse me. So, we need to be careful with narrative. We've hit narrative season. This is the same reason that preseason polls come out and Notre Dame is overrated. It happens every year. It's because the same people that are reminiscent of Notre Dame being good way back when are still involved with poll collecting. That's why they come out. It's not an accurate thing. A poll is an opinion. You can come poll me, and I could say right now Ole Miss is the number one team in the country, and that's not wrong because it's a poll. It's an opinion. Their goal is they can take 50 opinions and average them together and come up with some semblance of normalcy 1 through 25. That's what the poll system was. Can you believe that's what college football used to decide its national championship on? 50 media members? That's ridiculous. That so much they fought and fought and fought from settling on the field. And they use excuses like it'll devalue the regular season. Yeah, right now we're playing UTC on week 11. That just does just as much to devalue the regular season as playing a playoff. And that's the same argument coming out for expansion of the playoff. I'm an 8-team guy right now. Actually, I'm a 16-team guy. But right now, I'm fine with 8 teams. The more teams that are allowed into the tournament, the better shot a team like Ole Miss has. That's what you need to realize. If you like watching a college football playoff set up to where 6 teams make it every year, and there's no shot for Ole Miss, good for you. But I am an Ole Miss fan and then a college football fan, not vice versa. Now, I like watching games and doing everything, but I could take it or leave it. Now, I will watch, honest to God, I will watch Oklahoma and Nebraska this year because I want to see that faded unicorn that once was one of the most dynamic games in the country. The greatest game in the history of college football is still viewed as, I think, that 1970 or 71 Oklahoma-Nebraska game, the Johnny Rodgers game. But now, because of money, once they went into the Big 12, because that's what started this whole thing, it was them leaving the Big 8 because everybody was making fun of it, call it the Big 2+6. But going into the Big 12 South and Nebraska going into the North and not keeping each other as permanent opponents. This was back in the probably mid-90s. Well, they rarely played, if ever. I mean, like once every 6 years they would come across each other on the field. So that started killing, well, I mean, that killed the rivalry whenever that happened. That game all of a sudden just did not matter. It was just another conference game. It's taken a step further by Nebraska going to the Big Ten. Now these teams never play in any sports. There's no rivalry whatsoever between the two. It's just a game that used to happen. It could be Illinois versus the University of Chicago at this point. It could be anything. It could be Yale versus, I don't know, Carlisle College with Jim Thorpe. Who knows, you know? It's just a faded star of a football game. Something that at one time meant so much to a fan base. It meant everything. There's conversations like, what are we going to do against Oklahoma this year? How will we handle Nebraska this year? It was their game. It was the big 2+6. They're putting 80 points on Kansas State, Iowa State, Missouri, Oklahoma State, Colorado. Yeah, a lot of people forget Colorado was in that too. Colorado pieced out to the Big 12. So that game used to have such a meaning in the fabric of even college football. Even in Mississippi, it was on TV every year. But it just went away, just vanished. And this year they will commemorate the 50th anniversary of that Johnny Rodgers game, that 71 game, at 11 a.m. on Fox. I think it's week 3 of the season. So I'll watch that. I'm all about faded unicorns. It's like watching Michigan and Ohio State. I enjoy that immensely. But I honest to goodness, I've forgotten what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, so forgive me. Just because I went off on a tangent about faded rivalries. But I am excited about the Nebraska-Oklahoma game this year. That should be fun. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Chris Clark from Gamecock Central online previewing South Carolina. And after that, enjoy your 3-day weekend. I think one video is coming this afternoon, and that is a reaction video of the Ole Miss Vanderbilt game. But other than that, enjoy it. Have a good one. All right, stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop. Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right, we continue our previews of SEC teams with South Carolina. Chris Clark from Gamecock Central, so nice enough to join us, and he's going to talk a little bit about Gamecocks football. Exactly what is Shane Beamer's version of Beamer ball?
Well, that's a good question. I think to some degree we're going to find out stylistically, right? Like what this team's kind of identity is going to be. And I do think when people think about Beamer ball with Frank Beamer and Virginia Tech, typically are going to think about special teams and blocking kicks and things like that. And he'll place a heavy emphasis on it. I mean, Shane Beamer has coached on offense and defense as an assistant, and he's obviously coordinated special teams, and then he's got the background with his father. But he brought in a dedicated special teams coach, Pete Limbo, who's former head coach at Ball State, Elon, and is a pretty highly regarded special teams coach. And Shane Beamer, in sort of building out his staff, decided, hey, if I can give Pete Limbo, I think that highly of him. I want a dedicated special teams coach. That's the only – Pete Limbo doesn't coach a position. He's the special teams coach, standalone. So there will be an emphasis on that, very technical with that. But then you think about offensively what the team wants to be. Nobody's seen a Marcus Satterfield offense in a while, and he has experience in several different offenses. In terms of style, we know that Shane Beamer wants to loop in some stuff from Oklahoma, for instance, in what they do. And it's going to be sort of a very pro-style, very versatile, I guess you could say, offense as far as, what they want to do. But they didn't put a lot on tape during the spring game for people to see. And so I think they're going to still build that out, lean heavily this year, at least on their running backs and their tight ends, which are the better units on that offense. Defensively, they'll run a 4-2-5 with Clayton White, be pretty aggressive on third downs, things of that nature. And so I think that's kind of what you can expect stylistically in a nutshell, but there's still some things to, still some things to see in year one as far as how it's going to look.
Well, looking at the quarterback position, what are we looking like behind center this year in Columbia?
Yeah, so Luke Doty is the guy who took over towards the middle end of last season for South Carolina as a true freshman, and he's the incumbent starter. He's took the first snaps to begin spring, exiting spring. He was the top guy there as well. So he's a sophomore. He still has limited experience because he only played and started in a few games last year, but he's a guy that has talent. He's got tremendous leadership traits. I mean, he's one of those guys that people kind of gravitate towards. He's just naturally got those characteristics, but obviously it takes more than that, and it takes more than just talent. But he has a good blend of both. It's continuing to bring him along as a passer, really focusing on that. Luke Doty's a true dual threat guy. He's got legitimate speed. He could play wide receiver or another position at the college level and athletically be able to hold up. So it's just about continuing to have him gain experience and continue to progress as a passer. For him, I think the unfortunate part is South Carolina still needs a lot of help at the receiver position. That's an area they got to get better in. But Luke Doty will be able to bring that second element to this team and being able to run the football and make some plays with his legs if all else fails.
So are we looking, I guess, if you look at this offense and the fact that they switched systems so drastically last year, are we looking at more of a power run spread, like a power spread, old school Tim Tebow looking offense?
I think here's the thing from what we've heard, this playbook Marcus Satterfield has brought to South Carolina is very extensive. Now they'll have to pare it down, obviously, and they put a lot on the players, the quarterbacks, even early. Guys with, true freshman Colton Gauthier, who's the number 2 guy right now, a transfer in Jason Brown at quarterback, Luke Doty, who's still relatively inexperienced. They put a ton on those guys. And will they pare it down? Yeah, as they continue to figure out what this team does well. But there's a lot of different things. When you're talking about, being able to, do they have some power run elements? They do. They've got a lot of pro-style things that if you turn on some different teams in the NFL, you may see a concept come from this team or that team, but they've also got some spread Oklahoma-type stuff. Oklahoma's offense is sometimes misunderstood because people think of Oklahoma and they think of chucking the ball all around. They run the ball a lot at Oklahoma. And so I think there's going to be a lot of those different elements. It's going to be, I think, pretty versatile. They'll have to narrow it down, like I said, but there'll be some versatility to it. There's still some questions as to what it'll look like, but I think there's going to be, like I said, an emphasis on running backs, an emphasis on tight ends, getting those guys in some different spots because they have some interesting skill sets at the tight end position and a pretty good, running back room as well.
Yeah, I was just, yeah, there he is. Just want to say, are you there, Chris?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if I get the name right. If I get it wrong, I apologize. It's not intentional. But Kevin Harris, the running back, I watched him in Oxford go up and down the field all night. How do you think he is going to fit in with what they're doing offensively?
Yeah, I mean, that game, Stephen, there's a lot of going up and down the field by anybody who touched the ball on either team, it seemed like. But, yeah, Kevin Harris, I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere to a degree. Like, everybody in Columbia knew he had a chance to be a pretty good player. But what he did last season, I don't know if anybody saw coming. He was probably going to be the backup going into the season to Marshawn Lloyd, who's a former 5-star recruit, a freshman last year, but he tore his ACL, unfortunately, before the season. And so that pushed Kevin Harris up. Now, this may have happened anyway, but especially with Marshawn Lloyd out of the picture, super talented kid, Kevin Harris quickly became the number 1 guy, and he absolutely took it and ran with it. He showed more speed than people gave him credit for, power, had a great year, and now Marshawn Lloyd's going to be healthy. Zaquandre White has done a good job as well at running back, so they feel like they've got some depth and some talent at running back, and you'd have to think with the year that he had last season, Kevin's still going to be the first guy out there. Maybe he'll just get even more help this season, so he fits in well. I mean, this team's going to run the ball plenty, you would think. It's not a very good strategy, a wise strategy to come out and chuck the ball all over the place for this team. They're not built for that. And so I'd say he's going to be a huge part of their strategy offensively with however they get the ball in the running back's hands.
All right, let's look in the trenches. How does South Carolina look on the offensive and defensive line?
Yes, on the offensive line, they do return some solid players. They lose to Darius Hutcherson, who's a guy who was a senior for them and played quite well. But they also returned some young talent, some guys that have dipped their toes in the water in terms of experience, also some more experienced guys like Dylan Wanham at tackle. Defensive line, I think, is the strength of this team maybe in total. You would look at maybe running back, defensive line, and probably the tight end position. Those are your best spots on this football team. It's not to say it's without question. I think at defensive tackle, they do need some guys to take a step forward, like Zach Pickens, who was a former 5-star, who's a junior. They need some guys to step forward, but they do have some good players, particularly at edge rusher. J.J. Enigbari led the league in sacks last season. He's back. Aaron Sterling's going to be one of these super seniors who came back for another season. He's got a lot of experience. Jordan Birch, a former 5-star guy who got some valuable experience last season and has continued to take a step forward. They've got some guys on that defensive line that can play. They got to get a little bit better and more consistent on the interior, but I think that's a unit that they're really going to lean on. And offensively, too, that's going to be an important group.
Now, the defensive coordinator that you have coming in is he most of them are physical guys, but coming in after a guy like Boom, is there a concern that there's a stylistic mismatch?
Well, there is a stylistic difference, that's for sure. Now, what that means for the product, everybody's going to have to see. And, you also, any coordinator, you got to look at personnel. So with this team, we know they're going to be very thin in the secondary. That's just a reality. They're going to have to work through that. They've got some questions at linebacker. Like I said, they'll lean on the defensive line mostly, but there's going to be a stylistic difference. I mean, when you think about a guy playing a 4-2-5 base, teams have to play a lot of nickel nowadays anyway. But that is sort of Clayton White's base, the 4-2-5. They want to get teams to third down and be sort of creative in that sense, really get after the quarterback, mix up coverages. That's what they want to do. Now, how much will they have to adjust based on personnel this year? We'll see. But they are, they seem to be placing an emphasis this year on simplifying things, just allowing the guys to go out there and play fast as opposed to thinking. That's something that they talk about a lot with Clayton White and the rest of that staff.
All right. Real quick before I let you go, give me a 30,000-foot view of South Carolina football this season.
Well, I mean, Stephen, it's gone poorly the last couple of years, particularly. I mean, you look at last season, the conference-only slate, they win 2 games. The year before that, they were at 4 wins. And so certainly there's a ways to go. And I don't think anybody's going to carry high expectations into this season. It's kind of a reset. Are there some pieces? Is there an ability to be competitive and maybe go win the games you should, maybe steal a game and have a pretty good year? If this team, I think, makes a bowl, that's a pretty good accomplishment, as kind of a reset year. They're going to have to recruit their way out of some roster gaps. They're going to have to develop some of the guys they have. There are some quality pieces, but when you play the schedule that they're going to play, that's not good enough. You have to – every team that they're going to play has pieces just about. And so it's about just trying to maximize that. It is a different vibe, a different feel around the program. But as Shane Beamer's pointed out this spring and into this summer, they haven't faced adversity yet. They hadn't played a game, haven't lost a game. And so it's not a season where you project them from going, almost worst to first type thing by any means. I think expectations have to be tempered. They got to get recruiting going for the first time in a while, hosting, prospects on campus starting June 1. There's a ways to go, but there's more positivity around the program right now with the new staff. We'll see where things go from there.
Oh, and real quick before I let you go, I do have a question. With Dabo cooking down the road, how does that affect South Carolina right now, going through this rebuild?
Well, I mean, it makes things tougher on the fans. There's no doubt. I mean, you look at, when Will Muschamp got the job in 2016, I mean, Clemson had really started cooking then. I mean, 2016, they won the national championship for the first time since 1981. Clemson did, and that aggravates everything, right? When South Carolina has their own struggles, you don't only look at that. That's frustrating enough for the fan base. Then they look to Clemson doing extremely well, and Georgia has, they recruit so well every single year, and your schedule's good. You even look at teams like, Kentucky. I mean, they've gotten markedly better under Mark Stoops, and that's a team that's caused them a lot of trouble lately at South Carolina. So now they're trying to rise up to the level. They're going to have to try to rise up to the level where they can, pass a Kentucky, pass a Missouri. Can they get there? And then try to go towards the top of the conference, and we'll see. But, yeah, I mean, Clemson's rise definitely makes it tough. Those teams don't head-to-head recruit as much as people may think, at least right now. But it does aggravate and exacerbate sort of the pain level for South Carolina fans right now.
Yeah. Okay, Chris Clark, Gamecock Central, coming through. Do you anything you want to promote on your site?
No, just appreciate the pub, man. Appreciate the opportunity to come on. If you come check out GamecockCentral.com, have you covered all off-season recruiting, football. If you want to, any Ole Miss fans ever want to check out what's going on in Columbia.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much, and have a good one.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.